Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about creating ground destruction and how we could use SOPs to create fake destruction and things like this. So this is the idea here is, let's say we have Kong, for example, going backward, and this is Kong's feet pushing onto the ground. And then another effect where, for example, he could have a car or something thrown at that same area and we get a big deformation at once. So this is the feet going backward and then something else happened. I don't know exactly what, but you can see here the effect. And this is all done in SOPs, so there's no sim involved. And it's a very, very powerful technique that we could use to add all kinds of subtle destruction, RBD destruction. Now, this is a great way, a great approach to layer on top of other things as well. So for example, let's say I have this and then I have some other RBD layers on top. And let me find the clip. So this is an effect created with this setup, and the bottom layer is the ground destruction. And then the reason we're getting this effect is because there's no gravity, and then as this layer gets deformed, you see there is change here. That change is pushing the other layers which are on top. Not this one, sorry. This one. Almost. So this is a fake effect, really, but the idea is we want to have a ground destruction, the base one, that is animated, and then we have some active layers on top of it. And if we have the feet or whatever geometry pushing through all of this, we're gonna be able to get some really nice layering effects. Okay, so let's run this. So this is the sim. And I have the base layer, which is this one. This is set to static, animated static geometry. And then we have this layer, these two thin layers. They are fractured, and we're gonna set them as active. And this is the setup. Let's hit play. This geometry is going to fall down, and then because of that change, it's going to create introduce velocity into this. And again, I don't have any gravity or anything, so everything is flying outward because of that movement. So that's one way to create this this effect. And then the other thing we could do is create a gravity force and just have everything follow the main layer. So hit play, we should see everything fall down and interact properly with the ground. And it would be much harder if we were to do all of this dynamic, but with this technique where we have a base layer that we control and then other active geometry on top of it, it's gonna be much easier to control. It's gonna look really, really cool. And as you can see, there's no constraint, nothing involved here. You can see the ripple. But again, I'm gonna talk about the approach. And then you guys will make it look cool. Okay, so how is this done? Well, first of all, we need a geometry, obviously. So that's a grid. I used a high-res grid because I wanted to get a nice edge displacement or edge details, and then I have. Let me check. Yeah, so ignore all of this. I have a curve that I'm carving, so that's a curve. And then I'm using a color transfer between that curve and the ground. So I'm getting this. Okay. And with this grid, I have two other rest position, position basically. One of them is pushed down by minus 0.3, and then another one is pushed down by 0.5 and has a noise. So these are two positions that I can blend to. Let's go to this point fob and let's dive inside. So we have a rest attribute. I can connect this here and you will see that it's going down. It also has a noise, sorry. So this one also has a noise. It's a very subtle noise. And then we have another attribute that is called rest2. And if I connect this, it's going to go down even further. Let me check the name. Yeah, it's called rest2. Yep, so this is rest2, and then the original position. And we can blend between all of this. So I have this mask black and white, and I'm going to import the rest attribute, and I'm going to use this mask to blend between the two. And you can see how the grid is going down. Very simple. Okay, then I have another grid, curve. Same thing, but happens later and it grows faster. And that's to do the second impact. So I have the first one and then a second one, and then I'm using that to deform the grid even further. So first deformation, second deformation, and then we want to use this grid to deform the ground, to deform a fractured ground. So let's take a look at this. This is the ground. This is the fractured ground, and I will show how I did the fracture. You can see the blocks. There's more pieces at the center, and then as it spreads out, it's bigger and bigger blocks. And then I'm using a point deform. That's it. Point deform. This is my geometry. This is the RBD, and it's packed. We have to make sure it's a packed geometry. And then I'm using a point deform. And if we play through, that's our impact. That's our ground destruction. And then the second one. Okay, so for the fracture, I wanted to place more points on the curve where the curve is at, and I'm doing that by creating. So I have a generic scatter, and then I'm creating a mask like this. Now this mask is made by querying the position. So I'm starting at the curve, I'm storing the point position in an attribute called position, and then I'm using a near PT call, and this near PT is going to give me back the nearest point from this curve. So each point is going to find what is the nearest point on that curve. And then I query from that, I query the point of the curve that belongs to that point. From that, I can create a ramp. So if I import the end position, which is the curve position, and subtract that and compute the length, I'm going to get this. So that's the distance. These points are the closest, and then as it spreads out, it gets further and further. So if I fit range this into using a fit range, we can get this nice mask. And then I'm using a power function to change the curve, to change the look so that it's much stronger in the center, and then it fades off quickly. So it's an exponential drop off. And then using a ramp, I can control this further to get this nice mask. And all I'm using this for is to scatter points based on that mask. We could have done this in many different ways, but this is one way. And then I'm merging these two points, set of points on the grid, random points, and then points at where the curve's at, and I'm using that to fracture the geometry. I'm also applying some deformation to the grid. So this is the original grid. Using an attribute noise, I'm deforming the grid and then fracturing it and then restoring the position. So that's my fracture, and then computing the normals and then using a poly extrude to give it some thickness because it's a flat grid. And with the extrude, I'm naming the front and back outside and the side inside so that we match what the Voronoi node is doing. And then I'm assembling that. I should probably create a name attribute. Yeah, I should create a name attribute. It doesn't matter, but we should name them properly. And let's take a look at the exploded view. Oh, we have a name attribute. Sorry, the name attribute is coming from here. So we have a name attribute. Name attribute. I don't need a new name. Yep. So if we do an exploded view, you can see there, and then point deform, and everything is working as expected. Now we could do one more thing that I haven't done. I'm going to use an RBD interior. This is they improved this node quite a bit, so I started using it, and it actually works if you have proper groups and all. So let's do an exploded view after this and see. So I'm going to lower the edge details to 0.1, 0.025, and let's increase the amplitude and increase the frequency here. Okay, so we have some nice edge details, and let's use this with the deformation. So because we're going to use packed, it's very, very important for this to work that we use packed geometry. Otherwise it won't work. So this is with the fracture. You can see it's still same speed, same everything. Okay, so let's go back, and that's pretty much it for this part. That's how we use deformation, the point deform, to create fake destruction, and it actually works really, really well. In the next video, we're going to talk about creating RBD sim from these cracks to add debris. So let me show here. I'm gonna preview this and template this, and let's hit play. So we're going to talk about emitting debris from this. We can make it much stronger. Obviously we can control anything, but you can see now we're using another RBD sim to add debris onto the sim. Okay, we'll continue that in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.